In 1776, the United States was a fragile network of coastal settlements, clinging to the Atlantic and bordered by a vast, imposing wilderness. To the west lay a massive middle ground. This was not yet American territory, but a region governed by powerful indigenous nations like the Shawnee, Miami, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe. For the young republic, this frontier posed an existential crisis. Expanding into it meant risking a total fracture of the nation's economy or a betrayal of its founding ideals. The solution to this crisis didn't just add acres to the map, it created the specific economic and social framework that would eventually safeguard the Union. Following the Revolution, the 1783 Treaty of Paris officially transferred control of the lands northwest of the Appalachian Mountains to the United States. In 1787, Congress passed the Northwest Ordinance. It was a structural blueprint for the territory that would become Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin. The document mandated the establishment of college education and provided a legal guarantee of natural rights, including trial by jury and freedom of religion. Crucially, Article 6 of the ordinance explicitly prohibited slavery in the territory. By banning slavery from the outset, these laws aligned the region's labor and social systems with the American North, creating a distinct economic boundary between the free territory and the slaveholding South. The 1803 Louisiana Purchase added millions more acres to the West, but this expansion came at a heavy cost, involving decades of frontier warfare and the forced, systematic removal of native tribes. Early pioneers found that the rich prairie soil was too thick for standard iron plows, which often shattered against the dense sod. In the 1830s, John Deere's steel plow allowed farmers to cut through the heavy earth, moving the region from subsistence farming to high-yield commercial production. To transport these massive yields, engineering projects like the Erie and Ohio canals provided the first reliable water routes for high-volume trade. By the 1850s, railroads stitched the Midwest firmly to eastern financial markets. This allowed trade to bypass the old Mississippi River routes, tying the region's economic fate to the north rather than the south. This new economic alliance birthed the Republican Party, an anti-slavery political entity that found its leadership in a Midwesterner, Abraham Lincoln. When the Civil War erupted, the Midwest's massive agricultural surplus and industrial output became the Union's primary supply line, providing the physical resources Lincoln needed to preserve the United States. After the war, the Midwest shifted from a rural frontier into a global center of manufacturing. Chicago became the second-largest city in the country by 1890, acting as the primary clearinghouse for the nation's meatpacking, its vast lumber reserves, and endless grain supplies. Using iron ore from Lake Superior and coal from the Appalachians, cities like Detroit and Cleveland became global hubs for steel and automobile production. By the early 20th century, these cities formed the commercial core of the country, defined by high-density urban centers and rapid industrial output. This growth was powered by millions of immigrants from Europe, followed by millions of African Americans moving north during the Great Migration to escape the Jim Crow South. By the mid-20th century, the region functioned as the nation's dual core, balancing raw urban manufacturing power with high-volume agricultural production. In the 1970s and 80s, the region's dominance was challenged by automation, globalization, and the outsourcing of heavy manufacturing. These shifts caused sharp economic and demographic declines in traditional industrial centers, a period symbolized by the financial struggles of cities like Detroit. As the term Rust Belt took hold, the question was no longer how the Midwest would lead the nation, but whether it could survive the loss of its industrial base. The region did not collapse. Instead, it began a process of reinvention, similar to the transition brought on by the steel plow nearly 2 centuries ago. Agriculture has evolved into a multi-billion-dollar corporate enterprise, utilizing advanced technology to maintain its role as a global food supplier. Major metropolitan hubs like Minneapolis-St. Paul and Indianapolis have successfully diversified into tech, healthcare, and logistics. Cities like Columbus have seen a modern renaissance, driven by growth in higher education and diversified high-tech industries. The transition from an untamed frontier to a hub of technology shows a region that has maintained its role as a stabilizing cross-section of the American economy for over 250 years.